Alright, and we're live. Welcome everybody. In today's stream we're going to be talking about, today's video is about why most artists fail at anatomy. You know, if your anatomy looks wrong, it has a lot less to do with your anatomy and a lot more to do with your understanding of anatomy and how to bring it all together to create a body. And what I've seen, there are a few major things that artists skip when it comes to drawing bodies. When you miss these things, it makes it a lot more difficult to actually bring a body into form because you're missing these key elements. One of the first key elements that we're going to be talking about is gesture. Now, gesture drawing, you hear a lot of people say, well, I can only draw stick figures. Little do they know that if you can draw a stick figure, you know, if you can draw a little stick figure guy, then you're in the clear to draw some really cool stuff. And I'll show you exactly what I mean here. Alright, so when we talk about gesture drawing is just capturing the movement of a pose, whether that person is standing still or it's a dynamic pose. Gesture drawing captures the motion and the fluidity of a pose. So here we have our hero looking out over a balcony, sure. And you can see we've used very basic line work here because all we want to do is map out how our hero is posed. How is this pose set up? What is the fluidity behind this pose? How is it structured? So without a basic understanding of this, you know, you can know all the muscles of the body and still be lost, still be confused about where to take it from there. So the next thing, we have gesture. Number one, gesture, right? Now, number two, we're going to talk about construction or figure drawing. Construction, the figure of the pose. So now that we have this, how do we break this down in a way where we can see the body and how the body is made up, right? Because right now we just have an advanced stick figure. One of the main things I like to tell my students is the body is made up of three main shapes. We have boxes or cubes, however you'd like to call them. So that's one. We have cylinders, right? That's two. And then we have spheres or circles. That's three. And if you understand that the body is made up of these three different components here, you'll be able to put a body together with no problem at all. And let me just show you how the body is made up of these shapes here. So we have our advanced our advanced stick figure, or in other words, our gesture drawing. What we can do is I use circles for the joints. Alright, so where are these joints at? We have our shoulder joint, our elbow joint, and our knee joints. Okay? I use cylinders for the limbs, you know, for those major muscle groups. So if we're talking about the biceps, the triceps, the forearms, right? The legs. And you can see how our body is starting to come together here, just off of these simple shapes that we've added. And I should have said this first, so I did number these. So let me do them in order here. Number 1 is boxes. So the torso and the pelvis are essentially 2 boxes connected. And once you see this, it makes drawing torso so much easier. But we will talk about that in a later lesson. Right now I want to show you how this all comes together. Okay. So the torso would be this top box here. This signifies our rib cage, right? And this bottom box here signifies our pelvis. So this is where our legs connect into. This is where our abdomen connects into our pelvis. That's what this box stands for. And if you really look, you can see that the head can be a box as well. So now we have the 3 major masses of the body: the head, the torso, and the pelvis. But we're just focusing on the torso right now. So let's add our torso in. All right, so we have our box, our first box, and that signifies our rib cage. And then we have our second box, and that is for our pelvis. And we can just connect that together right here. All right, and then we'll add our other cylinder for our legs here, and one more for the shin and the calf. And we can just do like a triangle for the feet. And let's just add another arm right over here. So boom, we have simplified the body just by using our stick figure or our advanced gesture drawing, our advanced stick figure, excuse me, which is a gesture drawing, and our construction, which is taking these 3 very important shapes here and putting them together to create form. So let's draw a box for the head, right? And got the neck here. And now we have our hero overlooking, you know, the city or whatever he is protecting at this point in time. And let's just say it's the city, right? Because most heroes protect cities. Some heroes protect towns, I suppose, but let's just say our hero is protecting the city. So we have a little city backdrop behind us. Cool. So we have our gesture, we have our construction, and the last thing that we would need would be anatomy, right? Because nobody knows who Boxman is, right? Not sure about that superhero. Haven't heard of him. Maybe you guys have, but I haven't. Anatomy. Let me make sure I spelled that right. Okay. So number 3 is anatomy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my Faber-Castell eraser and I'm just going to lightly erase these shapes that we've put together to create our figure and our construction. And I'm going to lightly erase this, and then we're going to add anatomy over the top of it. So a lot of people go straight into anatomy, you know, when they're drawing. And I'm not going to say that's a bad thing, because at some point you will have to learn anatomy, right? At some point. But the way that I'm showing you is a way that makes it so much easier to understand, because you're not just drawing blobs of muscle. You actually understand how these muscles fit on the body and how they wrap around the actual structure of a human. All right. So now we can still see our construction here. We can still see our figure that we've created, and we can definitely still see our gesture lines. So what we'll do is we're going to add anatomy over the top of that. And, you know, it doesn't have to be super detailed. Not today. It's not really the point of today's lesson. Today's lesson is showing you how you can take these simple shapes and improve your anatomy tenfold, actually, because you're no longer guessing. And you know, it's fun to guess, don't get me wrong, when you're first getting started. But after you've got some skin in the game, you want to be a lot more in tune with what you're drawing. Because at the end of the day, you want the people that view your art to be in tune with your with your drawing as well. You know, you don't want to be confused, and you definitely don't want them to be confused, right? So let's see here. We're just gonna, right. And like I said, we're not gonna get super detailed, but the whole point of this is adding anatomy to this figure that we've created, right? Okay. So we have our face here. Let's add a little more. A little more detail, right? Got the neck muscles here. You can see everything just kind of falls in line with what we've already laid out. And that's why it's called construction, you know? If you were to build a skyscraper, would you just go in and wing it? Or would you go in with blueprints, you know, some schematics, so that way you know what you're building and what goes where, right? So let's see here. You see where we put that circle or that sphere for the shoulder joint? And we're just going to follow suit with what we've already put down, right? Then we have the bicep here, the tricep, and see how we're just going over what we've already placed, right? This was the cylinder. And now we're just adding to. Have the forearm here. And these muscles are going to wrap around. And we're just following what we've already created, guys. And that's what makes this equation here so powerful. Because it's not like you're learning anything new, right? You know how to do shapes, you know, and even if you haven't practiced 3D shapes before, they're very simple to understand. And I can do a whole video on that in itself. But that will not be today. Today, I just want to show you how to improve your anatomy using these basic shapes, because I see so many artists get lost and they're not sure where to go, because, you know, they can understand what the muscle looks like, but why does it go there, you know? And once you have a good understanding of your why, then everything else makes so much more sense. So much more sense. Okay. And we're just gonna All right. And we are finished with this arm here. Just keep it very simple, very basic for right now. And remember, we did a box for the torso here. The torso, the top part of the torso is a box, same that we have here. But now that we're going to add anatomy over the top of that, we can give it a lot more depth. So we'll add the lat muscles here, and we'll have the chest kind of poke out here. It's just a powerful character that we're drawing. You know, not lacking in the muscle department. So, you know, if you want to draw your character smaller, by all means. But this is just to get you familiar with drawing, you know, comic book characters. This is something that I've specialized in for a while now, and I quite enjoy it, you know. So if anybody has Marvel's phone number, tell them to. No, let me stop. No, actually, I think working for Marvel and or DC would be very fun. Actually, I'd enjoy it. I'd enjoy it immensely. Actually, I think that's a pretty cool flex to have. You know. But anyway, see how we're just going over what we've already put down, right? All right. And we'll add to the legs here. The legs, we're just going to follow these cylinders that we've already placed. Everything is right where it needs to be. So now you're just following these construction lines. And this is why I say it's so important to understand where these things go and how they start off. Because if you're lost here in the construction of it, how can you expect to fully understand the anatomy of the body? You know, you're doing your best to try to follow what you see, but you have to see what you don't see, right? If you can see what you don't see, which is the underlying construction of a body, then, you know, you can draw a body in whatever kind of pose that you'd like, because you understand the makeup of it. And that is the sole intention of this video, to help you understand the makeup of the body. Because once you have that, you're as good as gold. And let's give our character some boots here. You know. Got the knee. Right. Add some of the leg muscles here. But you can see how easily we just place the anatomy over the top of what we've already created. And this allowed us to beef up our character and have a good understanding of what we're doing here. Alright, so let's have him standing on top of some kind of fixture here. And we'll just bring this out that way. All right. just like that, we have created a hero in a heroic pose using gesture lines and figure drawing, or the construction. You know, with these three basic shapes, you can put together any kind of pose you would like and come out with your own characters or a full-blown person. And now that you have this, now that you understand the foundation, you can build any kind of body you'd like. All right. Where did my red pencil go? It fell off the table and got casted into the abyss. That's all right. We got another one. Wouldn't be an artist if you don't have two red pens, you know? Okay. Alright guys, in this video we're going to be talking about the three basic building blocks of the human body. The human body can be broken down into three major parts, and understanding this, you'll be able to create more dynamic poses and just have a better understanding of how the body is put together. Now, one major thing that I want you guys to understand is the body is basically just broken down into boxes, cylinders, and spheres, or circles, whatever you like to call them. That is essentially what the body is made out of. And let me just demonstrate that for you guys. Let's say we have a pose here, right? Alright, so we're gonna use boxes for the head, the torso, and the pelvis. And these are what I like to call the three major masses of the body, because they take up so much space in the body. You know, these are what make up the torso. So we have the head here, the ribcage area, and then the pelvis. Right? And then these can be connected like that. And like so. Alright, so with these, we have the head, the torso, and the pelvis. Let's just finish this box off so you guys can see. And we'll just add some center lines so that way you can see how the body is flowing in this pose here. Okay. So this box right here represents the rib cage. Now, once you add anatomy over the top of this, you know, you would have your pectorals, right? Your abdomen here, and of course your pelvis. And I'll tell you what, that's what I'll do. I'm going to just do the torso for you guys, and I'll do a few more demonstrations of the torso as well. But I'll show you just from this perspective here how we take these three major masses. You know, one, oops, my pencil just broke on me. Are you gonna be able to write? Okay. the head, torso, and the pelvis. And I know I've been saying that this makes up the torso. I do consider the pelvis to be a part of the torso, but just to make it easy for you guys, these are two separate parts. Like, I don't want you to be like, this is the torso. No, I just consider the pelvis a part of the torso. So when I look at these, oh, okay. Okay, 1 second. 1 second, guys. Wish I knew where that other pencil went. All right. There we go. So like I was saying, when I look at these, I group this together as the torso, right? So from here, you can add anatomy over the top of these two boxes here, because these two boxes connect, as you can see, as does the head. So add the pecs right here, right? And the shoulder would insert right in here. Add some serrations in the chest. And this is a part of the rib cage here, but this is covered by the abdomen. So you don't see too much of the ribs, but you do see the muscles that wrap around this portion of the body. Now, if your character has less muscle mass, then you would definitely see, you know, the ribs and the sternum and all that good stuff. But when I draw my comic book characters, I like to make them a little more beefy, you know, because they're out fighting crime, and I feel like it's only right that they have some muscle. So when I draw my characters, I do add muscle to them. Alright, so we have our abdomen here. And you can see how we've taken these two boxes here, and then you just drape the anatomy over the top. Right? And we'll just like that. And this is a superhero, so let's give him a utility belt. Right. Something to stash their gadgets in. Right. But just like that, just using these boxes here, especially these two, you can add anatomy over the top of that to create a torso, you know, and it's just adding anatomy. But let me show you a few more examples of how to take these boxes and add anatomy over the top of it. What I'll do is I'll draw some anatomy in a few different positions, you know, a few dynamic poses, and we'll go from there, just so you guys can see how that actually works and how that actually plays out. And let me sharpen my red pen just a little bit more. for whatever reason, it broke. Alright, and what I'll do is I'll draw a few of these boxes here so you can see how this works. Right, and I'm going to leave the box for the head out of it because I don't want you guys to get confused here. Like, why aren't we adding detail to the head? We can do that in a later video. But I do want you guys to have a good understanding of how to just take these boxes, these two boxes here, and add to them to create form. Alright. And now we have a center line through all of these. And one by one, I just want to show you how you can add your anatomy to these. So we'll start with this one. And you know, the chest typically sits about right here. Because this box right here represents your rib cage. I want you guys to keep that in mind. So this whole box represents your rib cage. So your pectorals will sit about right here, and your rib cage ends right here. Your abdomen will be right up in there. So tell you what I can do is help you guys see this a little bit better. All right. And maybe this will help you guys be able to see where that abdomen starts at. Right. So there we go. So see how it inserts into the torso here? Because this signifies your rib cage, remember that. And I'm just going to add the pectorals here. Remember that shoulder is a part of that pectoral, especially the front delt. The front delt is a part of that chest muscle. I want you guys to keep that in mind. All right. And for these abs here, they will compress on this side. So the abs on this side will be stretched, and the abs on this side will be compressed because the body is leaning. So that's something to keep in mind when you're drawing your characters is that muscles do move, and they're not just stationary. Muscles help you move. So it wouldn't be beneficial for them to be stationary. You know, sure, they are placed where they need to be placed, but they do move along with the body. So when you're drawing your anatomy for the torso, like if you're drawing abs, keep in mind that the body moves along. See how we're just going to squish the abs on this side? And how we're going to stretch the abs on this side to really show the stretch of what's going on here. And I'll add just the neck so you guys can kind of get the feel. We'll add the head too, sure. Alright, then we'll add the lat muscle, which goes back here. Alright, and then we can add these muscles on the side here. I forget the name of them, but these help the body twist and turn, these muscles on the side. Now let's draw the torso from a front-facing view, which we have where our pectorals will end at right here. So you can just collarbone right there, collarbone, and then just take the chest through. When you're drawing the pectorals, you know, you don't have to make them super round or nothing. You can even make them kind of blocky if you'd like. Alright, and mind you, this is where our rib cage ends at. So there are some muscles that wrap around that part of the ribs, some abdominal muscles, right? And we'll just go through and add our abs. And mind you, the pelvis is right here. We'll add the lats in. There we go. Just section this off right here. Add a belly button. But you can see just by using these boxes here, we're setting ourselves up for a good understanding of where things are placed. And if you have that, you're going to be very well off when it comes to drawing anatomy. Because once you understand where things are supposed to go, you're not guessing with the muscles. So many artists just find themselves guessing. Me included. For the longest time, I was just guessing where things went. It's like, okay, that muscle, I think that muscle goes there. So let's just draw something that looks like it's supposed to go there, you know? But when you understand that the rib cage is right here and the abdomen works its way around this rib cage in this torso area, you have such a better visual for what goes where. And that's important. That's important. Like I said, you wouldn't try to build a skyscraper without a blueprint. And when you're doing these exercises, this is your blueprint. Alright, so a challenge I want you guys to do is I want you to pause this video and I want you to try to take a box. We'll take these two boxes and see if you can put them together and add anatomy over the top of them to create form, to create a human body in motion. Or actually, it doesn't even have to be in motion. See if you can just take these two boxes and connect them in a way where you have a body. That's my challenge for you guys. I want you to pause this video and draw a few of these boxes here. Is my challenge to you to see if you can get 10 of them. Alright? And you guys let me know in the comments how you did. And with this pose right here, remember how I said, you know, the muscles aren't stationary. So in this pose, we're going to have the body stretching upwards, right? So that's going to mean that these abdominal muscles here are going to be stretched because the character is leaning backwards. So the same way we crunched the abs on this side and condensed them and made them squish together, with this side we're going to make the abs stretched and more elongated because this character is reaching up. So yes, that's something I want you guys to keep in mind. The muscles, they're meant to be moved, okay? So don't be scared to push the visual of the muscles being stretched. Alright, so we're just going to wrap these muscles around the rib cage like we've been doing. But now we're going to kind of draw these boxes a little close together, but that's okay. We're still going to be able to stretch the abdomen. Right? Really kind of elongate the abdominal muscles just to show that this character is reaching way up into the sky. There we go. And we'll add these obliques. I couldn't think of the name of them earlier. These are obliques, guys. All right. And there we go. So, like I said, my challenge to you guys is, can you see that? There we go. Like I said, my challenge to you guys is to draw a few of these boxes and add anatomy over the top of them. And Once you understand how to build form, the sky's the limit from there. Whether it's drawing arms, legs, or just the torso, once you understand the form that's underneath it, you'll be able to draw anything. Alright guys, in this video I'm going to be showing you how to simplify arms. Once you understand how simple it is, you'll never struggle with arms again. Now, one thing that I try to drill home with all of my students is that the body is made up of 3 different shapes. That is cubes, cylinders, and spheres. 1, 2, and 3. Once you can see the body being made up of these 3 shapes, you'll never excuse me guys, I'm chewing up my words. Once you can see the body made up of these 3 different shapes, you're not going to struggle with anatomy again, because you won't have to. Now, I use the boxes to make up the head, the torso, and the pelvis. But when I'm drawing arms or legs, I use these 2 shapes right here. And let me show you how to do that. So, circles are used for joints. So let's say we're drawing an arm. We have 1 circle and 2 circle. Now, what is this for? This is for the shoulder joint, and this is for the elbow. For the major muscle groups of these limbs, when it comes to the arms, we're talking about the biceps, the triceps, and the forearms. They're going to be cylinders. Right? So let's break this down. We've used 2 of the 3 main shapes that make up a body. Now, for arms in particular, what we did is we used circles for the joints. So here we have the shoulder and the elbow. And we use cylinders for the major muscle groups of the arm. So we have the bicep and the tricep, that is a muscle group. The bicep / tricep, right? And then we have the forearm, which is made up of extenders and flexors. And I'd love to do a whole video on that in itself. Alright, let me sharpen this pencil real quick. Sorry about this, guys. Got a phone call from my dad. It's not a random phone call, so gonna make sure he's all right. But like I said, we have the shoulder, the bicep, and the tricep, the elbow, and the forearm. And these are made up of a sphere, so essentially circles, and cylinders. So let's say that you want it to go through and now draw a arm, you can take this understanding and here we have the bicep, right? The tricep here. And the forearm. The elbow would be right in this area. And we'll just add these muscles into there. There we go. And we have the hand here. We're not going to go into too much detail with the hands. That'll be in a separate video. But just to show you how this comes together, right? Perfect. So I want you guys to understand that these are the same entity. We have circles for the joints, cylinders for the bicep and the tricep, cylinders for the forearm, and we have created an arm. So you can see how the simplified version is the same thing as the final version. It's just you have a better understanding of what makes up this final version here. And let's draw the arm from a few different angles, that way you can understand what to look for. All right. So let's draw the cylinders and the circles in a few different layouts here. That way you can see that the simplification of the shapes that make up the arm are all the same. Nothing has changed except where the arm is facing. All right. Okay. And let's draw some hands, just really basic hands. I'm not going to get too involved with the hands here. All right. So here we'll have the back view, or this will be the back view here. This will be a 3/4 view. How about that? So 3/4 view, the back view, and a front facing view. And as you can see, we're still using these two basic shapes. It is still made out of circles, right? Circles equal joints, and cylinders equal muscle groups. All right. So let me show you how to put that into practice. So starting off with the joints, shoulder joints, and I don't think I'll do these one at a time. That way you guys can just see the process of it all. So have the 3/4 view for the shoulder here, right? The tricep inserts into the shoulder joint. Right, the elbow. You see we have our circle here for the elbow. So let's respect that we put that there for a reason, right? Tricep is kind of a horseshoe kind of shape. Elbow here. And then the bicep. It's a 3/4 view, so you won't see the whole bicep. Right? You see how it's starting to put itself together in a way where we can see how these basic shapes here, once anatomy is wrapped around them, it becomes form. And that's what you're looking for. You know, understanding the basic shapes, you're not going to be drawing circles and cylinders your whole life. But I want to set you guys up in a way where you can see the basics of what makes these things look the way they do. Because once you can see the basics, you'll be able to see them in your mind. And that's what I really want you guys to be able to do. Because once you see the basics in your mind, it's wraps from there. You know, you'll be able to draw on a whim. You know, if you want to draw an arm, you'll just draw an arm. But you'll have trained this in your brain so much that you'll see joints and muscle groups as circles and cylinders instead of just a bunch of blobs. Because back when I first started drawing, that's how I saw muscles, as blobs, you know. All right, I just know we got some bumpy things here, some round things here, right? And that's not how I would go about drawing. If I could do it all over again, if I could show me as a beginner how to draw anatomy and how to put it together in a way that makes sense, not only to yourself, but to your audience as well, I would do this method every time. Every day that ends with Y. Because here you have understanding of the structure. You have understanding of the form. And once you have that, the sky is the limit. Right, and add in these muscles here, the elbow right there. The tendons would be right here in the hand. The thumb would kind of poke out right here. Right? And now we have the front. And like I said, we start off with the shoulder like we've been doing here. Circles for joints. You see we're just adding anatomy over the top of it. Cylinders for muscle groups. So the bicep here. Tricep. And the elbow. You won't see too much of it from the front, of course, because the elbow is on the back of the arm. But you can see a little bit of that joint kind of poking out there. So if you want to give your drawing a little bit of pizzazz and show folks that you have a little bit of anatomy understanding, then by all means add that little joint there just to show that you know what you're talking about. All right. And forearm here. And all right, that is how you take simple shapes, break them down, and put them back together to create form. So once you have an understanding of simple shapes, you can go through wrap anatomy around these simple shapes and be able to draw whatever you'd like. Alright guys, that's going to be the end of today's stream. I'll be back very soon. I'd like to do these a lot more throughout the week. So be expecting to hear my voice a lot more and see a lot more of these breakdowns here. Alright, I hope you guys have a great day. You guys take it easy. Peace.